Let's continue now with our interview with Ottilia from the Institute of Security Studies from our Pretoria Studios. Ottilia, are you with us? Wonderful.
I still am.
Good. I do apologize for that little interruption there. Whichever way it goes, Ottilia, arrest or no arrest, or how this is resolved will have great ramifications for both Europe and Africa. Speak to us of the implications for South African relations with the ICC and its AU alliances or partners.
I'll speak first about South Africa's relationship with the ICC. To date, South Africa has had one of the better relationships with the ICC, having lent a lot of support to the establishment of the court as well as the work of the court. This now really will sour the relationship between the ICC as well as the South African authorities. And I think that is one of the biggest results of what has happened over the weekend. When it comes to diplomatic relations internally on the African continent, some countries are likely to highlight the fact that South Africa, having positioned itself as a proponent of international criminal justice, has now moved against this. I suppose to highlight one country that chose instead not to host the AU summit because it didn't want to host al-Bashir, the country Malawi, will potentially say, for example, to South Africa that you too could have said we won't host the AU summit if it means that al-Bashir can attend.
South Africa, Ottilia, really in the hot seat for the past few days. Over the weekend, President Robert Mugabe slamming both Nigeria and South Africa at the AU summit, saying Africa would never agree to them getting permanent seats on the UN Security Council. Both voted for the UN Security Council resolution back in 2012, which authorized military action against Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Mugabe saying that both these nations betrayed the continent and thus can never be trusted. Does he have a point here? Or perhaps it's just a case of not wanting bigger African nations to take the helm?
It is a question of consistency. When in 2011, South Africa, together with other countries on the UN Security Council, referred the situation in Libya to the ICC, as well as made a resolution that followed that allowed for NATO to intervene in Libya, they have now in many ways shown that they are inconsistent in their position. Perhaps Mugabe does have a point there in terms of consistency of action. The question now, at least in terms of UN Security Council reform, that not only South Africa and Nigeria are pushing for, but a number of other countries, is whether countries that are inconsistent can be permanent member states of the UN Security Council, or whether we should be thinking about UN Security Council reform that doesn't envisage any permanent members.
Ottilia, very quickly before I let you go, rejuvenation of the African peer review mechanism also coming to the fore this past weekend. We know that it's 12 years old by now, and it was largely self-assessment on issues of corporate governance, politics, economy and so on. A need for revitalization at this point, do you think?
There is a need to revitalize it, but I think the real question is commitment towards APRM. In the years that it was operating, very few countries came forward to have their systems reviewed, and some that only did so under pressure from other countries. And so I think when it comes to self-assessment on the African continent, we are lagging. And the revitalization must not just be something that is said, it really must be something that countries follow through and actually do.
Ottilia Maun-ga-nidze, researcher from the Institute of Security Studies in Pretoria, thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights with us right here on the PM News Desk.